The evening at Le Jardin Étoilé, one of the most sophisticated restaurants in the city, began like any other. The chandeliers shimmered above polished marble floors, scattering golden light over white-clothed tables. Gentle piano music floated from the corner, weaving softly between the clinks of wine glasses and the low hum of conversation. Diners leaned toward one another, sharing laughter, secrets, or the occasional sharp whisper, while waiters moved like shadows, silent, efficient, practiced in the art of invisibility. To the staff, this Friday evening was nothing extraordinary. A few regulars sat in their usual corners, city officials and wealthy businessmen dining with their families. There was a table reserved for a couple celebrating their anniversary, already strewn with roses. The maitre d', a thin man with graying hair named Bernard, oversaw everything with the calm precision of a conductor leading an orchestra. But that fragile balance shattered the moment the doors opened. A man stepped inside, and the atmosphere shifted in an instant. It wasn't just his appearance, it was the gravity with which he carried himself, the way silence seemed to ripple outward from him like waves in a pond. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sharp, regal features framed by a neatly trimmed beard. His skin was sun-kissed, his eyes dark and penetrating, as though accustomed to gazing far across deserts and oceans. He wore a white thobe, spotless and flowing, with a golden égal securing his traditional head covering. A long, custom-tailored bisht, lined with threads of silver, draped over his shoulders. Even among the city's wealthy elite, his attire marked him as a man apart, someone of true distinction. The diners closest to the entrance froze, forks hovering midair. Conversations faltered. A murmur swept the room. Who is he? Is that, could it be, a sheikh? The man didn't seek attention, yet every step he took commanded it. His shoes tapped softly against the marble, polished to mirror perfection. His chin was held high, his movements deliberate, measured. He radiated the aura of a man who was not simply wealthy, but powerful. Bernard hurried forward, a nervous smile plastered on his face. He extended his hands in welcome. Bonsoir, monsieur. Welcome to Le Jardin Étoilé. Do you have a reservation? The man answered, his deep, melodic voice filling the space. Alan wa salan. Leah Haj Hadihi al Masa. Bernard blinked. His lips twitched, and he forced another smile. Excuse me, the sheikh repeated, this time slower, gesturing politely with his hand as though that might help. Haj, reservation, tonight. The maitre d's smile stiffened. He recognized perhaps a single word but not enough to make sense of the sentence. He nodded anyway, as though pretending comprehension might be enough. Ah, yes, reservation, of course. One moment. He turned quickly to the hostess stand, flipping through the reservation book, beads of sweat forming on his brow. But the sheikh followed, speaking again in Arabic. His words rolled smooth and commanding, rich in tone, but incomprehensible to the staff gathering around. A hush settled. Diners craned their necks to watch the unfolding scene. Some chuckled quietly, others whispered. They don't understand him, someone muttered. The sheikh's brows furrowed slightly. His gaze swept the room, firm yet not unkind, though his growing impatience was clear. He repeated himself once more, this time gesturing to the reservation book and then to himself. Bernard swallowed hard. Yes, just a moment, monsieur. He darted glances at his staff, hoping someone, anyone, might understand Arabic. But they all shook their heads. French, English, Italian, even a bit of Spanish, they could manage. Arabic, not a chance. The sheikh sighed, his broad shoulders rising and falling. He motioned again, this time pointing toward the dining area, then to his watch, then back at the maitre d'. His meaning seemed obvious, he wanted to be seated, but Bernard hesitated, unsure if he might be offending by misunderstanding. The tension grew thicker by the second. Diners whispered louder now, some openly amused, others pitying the man who seemed stranded in a sea of unfamiliar language. Near the far side of the room, a young waitress named Elena watched with unease. She was slender, with dark hair pulled neatly into a bun, her black and white uniform crisp but plain compared to the glittering dresses of the guests. She had been serving a family celebrating their son's graduation, but her attention had shifted entirely to the scene at the entrance. Elena's heart beat a little faster. She could hear the sheikh's words clearly, the cadence and rhythm of Arabic instantly familiar to her. She hadn't spoken it in months, not since finishing her degree in Middle Eastern languages at the university. After graduation, she'd taken this waitressing job out of necessity, setting aside her dream of becoming a translator. Life had become a cycle of carrying plates, memorizing orders, and pretending not to notice the condescending way certain guests looked at her. Yet now, as the sheikh's voice echoed across the room, memories stirred, long nights hunched over textbooks, whispering foreign words under her breath, the thrill of mastering each new phrase. She understood him perfectly. He was simply asking for his reserved table by the window and a menu with no pork dishes. But Elena hesitated. Speaking up would mean drawing every eye in the restaurant onto her, stepping out of the invisibility she had grown so accustomed to. Her manager had always warned the staff to stay in their lane, let the maitre d' handle guests, never interfere. If she spoke now, she risked embarrassment, or worse, her job. Still, the scene was unraveling. The sheikh grew visibly irritated. He gestured for water, miming the shape of a glass with his hand. The staff rushed to bring him one, but they offered it clumsily, unsure if they had guessed correctly. He took it with a curt nod, muttering something under his breath that Elena instantly understood. Do none of them understand a single word I say? The diners were enthralled now, eyes bouncing between the flustered maitre d' and the imposing figure of the sheikh. Some smirked, clearly entertained by the restaurant's humiliation. A wealthy couple at the corner even whispered loudly enough for others to hear, so much for five-star service. Bernard's face flushed crimson. He bowed apologetically, his hands wringing together. Monsieur, please, one moment. We will, he trailed off helplessly, not knowing what else to say. The sheikh's expression hardened. His lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment, it seemed he might simply turn and leave. And that, Elena realized, would be a disaster. The sheikh wasn't just a guest. She could tell by his attire, his bearing, even the subtle way he commanded the space, he was someone of immense influence. His departure would not only embarrass the restaurant but could ripple through the city's elite circles. Le Jardin Étoilé's reputation might never recover. Her palms grew damp, her mind raced. She could stop this. She should stop this. But could she risk it? The sheikh spoke again, this time louder, his frustration finally boiling through. His words carried clearly. This is shameful. A place of such prestige, and not a single person understands me. Elena's breath caught. Every syllable rang like a challenge in her ears. She knew the solution. She had the answer inside her. She took a step forward. Her colleagues didn't notice, their eyes fixed on Bernard's floundering attempts. Another step, her pulse pounding now in her throat. The piano player faltered on a note, distracted by the tension in the air. Elena could feel dozens of eyes on her already, though she hadn't spoken yet. Her throat tightened. What if she mispronounced a word? What if she embarrassed herself in front of the entire room? But then the sheikh's gaze swept the restaurant once more, sharp, piercing, as though searching for anyone, who could bridge the gulf of silence. His eyes briefly locked with hers. That was enough. Elena drew a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and prepared to speak. The air inside Le Jardin Étoilé felt heavy, almost suffocating, as though every chandelier's crystal had frozen mid-sparkle. The maitre d' was pale, the staff fidgeted in nervous silence, and diners leaned forward eagerly, their curiosity at its peak. All eyes remained fixed on the imposing sheikh, his stern presence now charged with frustration. And then, like the crack of lightning breaking a storm, came a clear, confident voice. Marhaban, kaifa hadratukum. The words, spoken in flawless Arabic, didn't come from the maitre d', nor from any translator rushing in to save the night. They came from Elena, the young waitress who until that very moment had blended seamlessly into the background. The restaurant froze. Forks clinked against plates. Someone gasped. The sheikh's eyes darted toward her, startled, his expression instantly transforming from impatience to disbelief. He had expected nothing but silence, another wall of incomprehension. But instead, the words of his own language reached him, warm and precise, flowing as though he were suddenly back in Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, or Dubai. For a heartbeat, he said nothing, simply staring at her as if unsure he had heard correctly. Then his lips curved into the faintest, incredulous smile. Anti tatakalamina al, Arabia? He asked slowly. You speak Arabic? Elena's chest tightened, her heart hammering in her ribcage, but she nodded and answered firmly. Naam, atakalamu hajayidan. Yes, I speak it well. The ripple that passed through the restaurant was almost physical. Diners twisted in their seats to look at her, staff members' jaws dropped, and Bernard nearly stumbled backward in shock. The atmosphere flipped in an instant, from helpless embarrassment to wide-eyed awe. The sheikh's sternness dissolved like mist. He chuckled, low and deep, shaking his head as though marveling at the surprise. He replied quickly, his words pouring out like a river suddenly freed. Alhamdulillah. At last, someone who understands. I thought I was surrounded by silence. Alina's lips tugged upward, though her nerves still fluttered. She had done it, she had crossed the invisible line. And now, the entire restaurant hung on every syllable that passed between them. The sheikh continued, gesturing toward the maitre d', who stood uselessly nearby. Please, tell them, I had a reservation tonight by the window, and I only asked for simple things, water with lemon, and a menu without pork. Elena turned calmly toward Bernard, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath her skin. He says he has a reservation under his name, for the window table, and he requests water with lemon and a menu excluding pork dishes. Bernard blinked, then scrambled to nod, bowing repeatedly. Oui, of course, Right away. He snapped his fingers at the nearest waiter, his earlier panic replaced with desperate eagerness to please. The sheikh's gaze softened as he looked back at Elena. Shukran, he said, the gratitude in his tone undeniable. Thank you. Elena dipped her head slightly, replying in kind, Afwan. It's my pleasure. The surrounding diners whispered furiously. Where did she learn Arabic? She's just a waitress, how does she speak like that? She saved the restaurant. Elena could feel the weight of their stares, heat rising in her cheeks. She wanted to shrink back into invisibility, to hide from the sudden attention. But the sheikh was looking at her with something she hadn't expected, respect. Tell me, he said in Arabic, lowering his voice so that only she could hear clearly, where did you learn our language? Not many in this city would make the effort. Elena hesitated, but his tone was genuine, inviting. At university, she explained softly. I studied Arabic and Middle Eastern culture. It fascinated me, the poetry, the history, the way each word carries weight. But after I graduated, life took me here instead. She gestured vaguely to her uniform, her tray tucked under one arm. The sheikh regarded her with a thoughtful silence. His eyes, once sharp with irritation, now seemed to appraise her in a different light. He nodded slowly, as if filing away the information with care. Then tonight, fortune has brought me someone who understands not only my words but perhaps also my world, he said. A flicker of pride warmed Alina's chest. For years, her knowledge had felt like a hidden treasure, buried under the monotony of restaurant shifts and the dismissive glances of patrons who saw only a server. But now, in this single evening, it was unveiled, valuable. She guided him to his table by the window, translating each exchange between him and the staff. When he requested dishes seasoned without alcohol, she relayed it. When he asked for recommendations, she suggested delicacies she knew he might enjoy, describing them in Arabic with a fluency that made him smile. The staff followed her instructions quickly now, their earlier disdain replaced by newfound respect. Diners watched as though a performance were unfolding, their meals forgotten. The girl who had carried plates in silence only an hour before now conversed effortlessly with a man of immense wealth and power, bridging two worlds with every phrase. As the sheikh sipped his water, he leaned toward her slightly. Your accent, he said in Arabic, it is very good. Not perfect, but warm. Like someone who learned with love, not obligation. Elena flushed, the corners of her lips curving upward. Thank you. I suppose, that's true. I fell in love with the language before I even understood it fully. And now, speaking it again, it feels like remembering a part of myself I thought I'd lost. The sheikh's eyes softened further, his earlier aura of authority now mingled with genuine curiosity. And yet here you are, serving tables. Does your city not value such talent? Elena looked down for a moment, her throat tightening. Value, maybe, but opportunity, not always. Dreams sometimes wait longer than we expect. His silence after that was heavy, but not dismissive. It was the kind of silence that carried thought, reflection. Meanwhile, the whispers in the restaurant grew into quiet admiration. Guests nudged each other, remarking on her courage, her intelligence, the way she had saved what could have been a disastrous evening. Some looked at her with envy, others with newfound respect. For Elena, the night felt surreal. With every sentence exchanged, she grew bolder, her confidence blossoming. The Arabic words that once felt locked inside her now poured freely, dancing between them like firelight. And the sheikh, once a figure of untouchable wealth, now seemed almost human in his gratitude, his laughter, his curiosity. By the time his meal arrived, the tension of the evening had melted away entirely. He tasted a dish she had suggested, a lamb stew with fragrant spices, and his smile widened. Excellent, he said. You truly do know how to guide a guest. Elena smiled back, her heart swelling. She realized that what had begun as an accident, a chance to step forward when no one else could, was becoming something far greater. The diners still whispered, the staff still stared, but none of that mattered anymore. For the first time in years, Elena felt seen, not as a waitress, not as background, but as herself. And as the sheikh set down his fork, looking at her with quiet consideration, she sensed that this night was only the beginning of something much larger. The evening had shifted from tense embarrassment to something close to magic. By the time the sheikh finished his lamb stew, the restaurant was no longer simply a place where people came to eat. It had become a stage, and every guest was an audience member captivated by the unlikely partnership between the elegant foreign dignitary and the humble waitress who spoke his tongue. Elena stood nearby, attentive but relaxed now, her apron folded neatly as though it were part of an evening gown. She answered when needed, but more often than not, their conversation drifted into deeper places, about culture, about his travels, about the city she lived in. Diners leaned in, straining to catch fragments of their exchange, though most of it was in Arabic, a melody foreign yet fascinating to their ears. When the final dish was cleared, the sheikh leaned back in his chair, his posture no longer tense but regal in its calm. He lifted his napkin, dabbed his mouth, and set it down deliberately. Then, to everyone's surprise, he stood. A hush fell over the restaurant. The pianist even stopped mid-piece, his hands hovering above the keys. The sheikh placed one hand over his chest and began to speak in Arabic, his voice deep and resonant, carrying with ease to every corner of the room. He spoke not just to Elena, but to everyone, though only she understood. Tonight, he began, I entered this place as a stranger. I was ready to leave in disappointment, believing no one could understand me. But then, he turned to Elena, his eyes filled with warmth. A young woman lifted her voice, and suddenly, I was no longer alone. Elena's throat tightened. She blinked rapidly, realizing the weight of his words. The diners shifted, glancing at each other. They didn't understand, but they knew. The sheikh continued, his words flowing like poetry. Language is not merely words. It is connection. It is dignity. And when no one could bridge the silence, she did, not with hesitation, but with courage. She made me feel at home, thousands of miles away from my homeland. He nodded gently to Elena, signaling her. Her breath caught. She realized he wanted her to translate, to make his words known to everyone. She stepped forward, her palms slightly damp, but her voice steady as she repeated his speech in English. Tonight, I came here as a guest. I thought I would leave unheard. But this young woman spoke, and with her words, she gave me a home away from home. Language is more than speech, it is kindness. And she gave that to me. The effect was immediate. The room erupted into applause, thunderous and unrestrained. Diners stood, clapping, cheering, some even whistling in delight. Elena's cheeks burned crimson as she ducked her head, overwhelmed. Tears pricked at her eyes. For years, she had been invisible, blending into the background, her dreams buried under plates and orders. And now, here she was, standing in the spotlight, her voice echoing as the entire restaurant applauded her. The sheikh raised a hand, and the applause gradually subsided. He looked directly at Elena, his gaze both kind and commanding. In Arabic, he said, "You should not be serving tables. You should be building bridges." Her breath hitched. She translated his words aloud, her own voice trembling at the meaning. The diners gasped. Bernard, the maitre d', looked as though he might faint. The sheikh reached into his robe and withdrew a small, elegant envelope. He extended it toward her with solemn dignity. Elena hesitated, her hand trembling as she accepted it. Inside, she felt the stiffness of papers, not money, but something else. An invitation, he explained softly, still in Arabic. I am expanding my business abroad. I need someone who speaks with heart as well as with skill. Come work with me as a translator. Your place is not here among plates and trays, it is beside people who value your gift. Elena's knees nearly buckled. Her heart raced, her mind spinning in disbelief. She opened the envelope slightly, glimpsing a formal letter on embossed paper, her name already written. Around her, the whispers turned to astonishment. He offered her a job. She's leaving with him. This is like a movie. Elena swallowed hard, tears slipping free now. She looked at the sheikh, her lips parting. But, why me? He smiled faintly, a smile that reached his eyes. Because when everyone else stayed silent, you spoke. And that, my dear, is leadership. Her chest swelled with emotion. For years, she had doubted herself, believing her studies were wasted, her dreams foolish. And now, in the most unexpected of moments, those very dreams had lifted her from obscurity. The applause began again, softer this time, but heartfelt. Diners looked at her not as a waitress anymore, but as someone extraordinary. Bernard approached timidly, his earlier arrogance gone, his voice stammering. Elena, we are proud of you. But even he knew the truth. The restaurant had lost her tonight. Elena clutched the envelope to her chest, her heart pounding with hope and fear all at once. She turned once more to the sheikh, bowing her head slightly. Shukran, she whispered, her voice breaking. Thank you. He inclined his head with dignity. The thanks is mine. As he prepared to leave, the pianist resumed playing, but now the melody was brighter, soaring. The diners returned to their meals, though the buzz of excitement lingered, their voices weaving into a single story they would all retell, the night a waitress stunned a millionaire sheikh by speaking his language. When the sheikh finally departed, leaving behind a generous gratuity that stunned the staff, Elena stood at the window, clutching the envelope, her reflection shining in the glass. The city lights glittered beyond, a reminder of the countless possibilities waiting for her. She closed her eyes, drawing in a deep, trembling breath. Tonight had changed everything. No longer invisible, no longer unheard. She had spoken, and the world had answered. And so, the story ended where it began, in a restaurant filled with whispers. But now, those whispers carried her name, spoken with awe and admiration. Sometimes, the smallest voices really do change everything.